This is the story of my mother-in-law, Irene. To put it lightly, she's been a nightmare since the moment I entered her son's life. I should start by saying I grew up with strict parents. It made me good at handling difficult people. At least, that's what I thought. But nothing could have prepared me for Irene. For years, my husband, Ethan, and I lived in a different city, far away from her meddling. Life was peaceful. Sure, there were the occasional passive-aggressive comments during holiday visits, but they were easy to ignore when we only saw her a few times a year. That changed when Ethan got a job offer in his hometown. Suddenly, Irene became a daily presence in our lives. At first, I tried to be understanding. She was Ethan's mom, after all. And to her credit, his dad, Richard, was nothing like her. He was kind, easygoing, and genuinely excited to spend time with us. But Irene, she took over. She inserted herself into every aspect of our lives, questioning our choices, our parenting, even the way I cooked. The worst part, she didn't respect boundaries. My daughter Lily was 9 at the time. She adored her grandparents, especially since she didn't have much contact with my side of the family. I wanted to nurture that bond, even though Irene and I had our issues. Family was important to Ethan, and I didn't want to be the reason Lily missed out on having grandparents. But then Irene started crossing lines. Lily has a severe nut allergy. I mean, severe. Even being near nuts could send her into anaphylactic shock. We had protocols in place, carried EpiPens everywhere, and her doctor assured us that as long as we were careful, she'd be fine. Irene, however, didn't believe in food allergies. "I think you're babying her too much," she told me one afternoon, sipping her coffee like she wasn't spouting complete insanity. Kids build tolerance over time. Back in my day, we didn't have all these so-called allergies. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. "It's not something she'll grow out of, Irene. If she eats the wrong thing, she could die." Her doctor— "Oh, doctors," she scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "They're always exaggerating. You should try giving her a little at a time. Help her body adjust." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Irene, if Lily eats even a trace of nuts, she could die. This isn't a debate." But she wasn't listening. The first major incident happened a few weeks later. I was packing Lily's backpack for school when I found it, a granola bar, one that very clearly contained almonds. My stomach dropped. I knew I hadn't packed it. I stormed over to Ethan, gripping the granola bar in my fist. "Did you give this to Lily?" He frowned. "No. Why?" "There are almonds in this." My voice shook with anger. "Do you think Lily put this in her bag?" We both knew she wouldn't. Lily was meticulous about her food, trained from a young age to check every ingredient. That left only one possibility. I turned to Ethan, my voice low. "Your mother did this." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Ava, we don't know that." "Yes, we do," I snapped. "She's the only one who doesn't take Lily's allergy seriously. What if Lily had eaten this at lunch? She could have ended up in the hospital. Or worse." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, I know my mom has strong opinions, but she wouldn't actually put Lily in danger." I held up the granola bar. She already did. That night, I made a decision. Lily would never be alone with Irene again. But no matter how vigilant I was, no matter how many boundaries I set, Irene wasn't done testing them. And then came Lily's birthday party. That was the day everything changed. That was the day I realized just how far Irene was willing to go. And it nearly cost my daughter her life. Lily's birthday was supposed to be perfect. We planned a small gathering at home, just a few close friends, some pizza, cake, and presents. Nothing extravagant, just a simple, happy day for our daughter. We invited Richard and Irene, of course. Despite everything, they were still Lily's grandparents, and she was excited to have them there. But something about Irene felt off. She had called 3 times that week asking about the party, and each time she brought up the gift. "I've got something special for Lily," she had said. "Something she'll love." I should have listened to my gut. The day of the party, Richard and Irene showed up early. That alone set off alarm bells. Irene was never early for anything, and she was carrying a huge wrapped box. She practically shoved it into Lily's arms. "Happy birthday, sweetie. Grandma got you something really special." Lily's face lit up. Wow, Grandma, can I open it now? Something in Irene's voice made my stomach twist. Yes, open it now. It's meant to be opened before the cake. That was weird. Normally, we did presents after the cake, but Irene was pushing hard. I forced a smile. Let's wait until all your friends get here, Lily. We'll do presents after the cake, okay? But Irene wouldn't let it go. No, no, no. This one has to be opened now, she insisted, her eyes locked on me. Trust me, it'll make her birthday extra special. I should have put my foot down. I should have stopped her. But I didn't want to ruin Lily's excitement. So I gave in. Okay, just this one? Lily tore into the wrapping paper, revealing a beautifully decorated white box with her name written in pink frosting. It was a cake. For a brief second, I let my guard down. Then Lily's smile faded. She hesitated. Her hands started shaking. And then she collapsed. Time froze. For one horrible, silent moment, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Then it hit me. The allergy, the cake, oh my God. Lily, I screamed, dropping to my knees beside her. Her face was already swelling, her breathing shallow. My hands fumbled for the EpiPen I always carried. Ethan, call 911, now! I barely heard him as I jabbed the EpiPen into her thigh, praying it would work fast enough. The room spun around me. The party guests faded into the background. There was only Lily, lying there, fighting to breathe. And then I turned my head and saw Irene, standing there with wide-eyed fake innocence. I don't even remember standing up. I don't remember moving toward her, but suddenly I was in her face, my voice shaking with rage. What did you put in that cake? She blinked at me, all doe-eyed innocence. It's just a regular cake. I thought she'd love it. Maybe it was something else that caused this. Don't play dumb with me, I roared. You know she's allergic to nuts. Did you put nuts in that cake? Irene crossed her arms, looking bored. Well, yes, there are some nuts in it, but it's healthy. Kids need nuts to build tolerance. I saw red. My hands shook. You knew it could kill her, and you did it anyway. Irene had the audacity to look offended. I didn't think it would be this serious, she muttered, glancing away. Richard, who had been standing silently beside her, finally spoke, his voice tight with horror. Irene, what the hell have you done? Before she could answer, the paramedics burst through the door, and suddenly, everything was moving too fast. Lily was being loaded onto a stretcher. Ethan and I were running after them. We left Irene behind in stunned silence, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was never letting that woman near my daughter again. Ever. The ambulance ride was a blur. I held Lily's tiny hand the entire way, whispering, "Stay with me, baby. You're going to be okay." Ethan sat beside me, his face pale, his hands trembling. I don't think I had ever seen him like that before. When we got to the hospital, doctors rushed Lily into an emergency room. I wasn't allowed inside, so I waited, and waited, and waited. Every second felt like an eternity. My chest ached from holding my breath for so long. Ethan paced the room, running his hands through his hair. I can't believe this happened. I never thought my mom would actually... I cut him off. She tried to kill our daughter, Ethan. My voice was ice cold, his face twisted in pain. I don't think she meant... I shot up from my chair, my entire body trembling. Don't you dare defend her. Not after this. Not after what she did. Ethan fell silent. Good, because I was done making excuses for that woman. An hour later, the doctor came out. She's stable, he said. The reaction was severe, but the EpiPen and quick medical attention helped. We'll need to keep her under observation for the next 24 hours. Relief crashed over me so hard that my knees almost buckled. I clutched Ethan's arm. Can we see her? The doctor nodded. When we walked into the hospital room, Lily was awake, her eyes heavy-lidded but alert. She looked so small in that hospital bed. Mom? Her voice was weak, but hearing it was like oxygen to my lungs. I sat beside her, brushing her hair away from her face. I'm right here, baby. You're safe now. Her little hands curled around mine. Grandma gave me the cake. Did it have nuts in it? Tears burned my eyes. I didn't want to scare her, but I wouldn't lie. Yes, sweetheart. It did. Lily's lower lip trembled. I don't want to see Grandma anymore. Hearing that broke me. She was 9 years old, too young to have to process betrayal from someone who was supposed to love her unconditionally. I promise, I whispered. You won't have to. By the time we got home the next day, I had already made up my mind. Irene was done. No more visits, no more second chances. She was out of our lives. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Richard waiting for us on the porch. Irene was nowhere in sight. How's Lily? He asked immediately, his voice heavy with guilt. She'll recover, I said, but she's scared. She doesn't want to see Irene again. Richard nodded, his expression dark. I don't blame her. I had no idea she'd do something so reckless. Ethan sighed. Dad, it's time. Mom can't be in our lives anymore. Richard looked down. I know. Then he surprised me. I'm filing for divorce. My eyes widened. Are you sure? He exhaled slowly. I should have done it years ago. Your mother has always been controlling, but this is unforgivable. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we had an ally in this. But it wasn't over. Irene wasn't the type to back down easily, and we were about to find out just how far she was willing to go. A few days later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Irene standing there, a smug expression on her face and a stack of papers in her hand. I'm here to talk, she said, as if nothing had happened. I blocked the doorway. There's nothing to talk about, Irene. You almost killed Lily. You're not welcome here. Her lips curled into a sneer. You don't get to make that decision, Ava. She shoved the papers toward me. These are my rights as a grandmother. I'm taking you to court to make sure I can see my granddaughter. I stared at her, stunned. She was actually suing us for grandparent visitation rights. I couldn't believe it. I clenched my fists. Are you serious right now? You gave her a cake with nuts, knowing she could have a deadly reaction, and now you want to force your way into her life? Irene folded her arms. I was helping her. You're the one overreacting. My blood boiled. You're not a doctor, Irene. You're not Lily's parent, and after what you did, you'll never see her again. Ethan appeared behind me, his face hard. Mom, leave. You've crossed too many lines. We're done. For a second, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Then she turned ice cold. I knew you'd take her side, she spat. She's poisoned you against me. A car pulled up behind her. It was Richard. He stepped out and walked toward us, his eyes fixed on his wife. Irene, he said quietly. It's over. She spun around to face him. You're supposed to be on my side. I can't support you when you've hurt our family, Richard said. I've filed for divorce. Irene's face crumbled. For a moment, she just stood there, speechless. Then she turned back to me, her expression twisting into something ugly. This isn't over, she hissed. I'll fight you in court. You can't keep me away from Lily. I shook my head. You won't win. My voice was steady. You put her life at risk. That's not something a judge will ignore. Irene stormed off, muttering under her breath. I watched her go, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It was hard to watch someone self-destruct like that, but we had to protect Lily. Irene did try to go to court, but the police report, hospital records, and Richard's testimony made it clear. She was a danger to Lily. The judge dismissed her case immediately. We got a restraining order against her, and just like that, she was gone. Richard finalized the divorce. He started coming over more often, spending time with Lily. Their bond grew stronger. Lily went to therapy to process what happened. It took time, but she started to heal. She no longer had nightmares about her grandmother. She felt safe again. One evening, as Ethan and I sat together watching Lily play with Richard, Ethan took my hand. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it, he said softly. I should have protected you both sooner. I squeezed his hand. We did what we had to do. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Irene faded into the background. No one wanted to deal with her anymore. Not friends, not family. She became a cautionary tale of what happens when you let pride and control take over your life. But for us, it was a new beginning. Lily's safety and happiness would always come first. And that was a promise I would never break,